Thank you. Thank you so much. That is unbelievably humbling because I believe that anyone can do all of the things that I've been able to accomplish. And that is actually what I want to share with you. I want to share with you how you can be more, do more, and have more. And you might think I'm actually nuts for even bringing this up because we are in the middle of a pandemic and life has just changed as we know it. But there's very simple techniques that you can use to get anything that you want in life and business. And I want to share that with you because I have been able to figure out a way to get an amazing reputation, even though I actually don't necessarily think I really deserve it. About 5 years ago, I decided that I was going to be I was going to have a real mission, and I was going to be very mission driven, and I was going to really focus on making a real impact. You see, I came from a really small town in Alabama, is where I grew up. My parents were both from the San Francisco area, but I grew up in a small town, population 79 today, and a small town country girl, you might call me. And never in a billion years would I have ever thought that I would be able to speak with people in the UK, or much less have an actual impact on the world. And it all started with an idea. And the idea was that I'm here to activate the world through my unique ability to be a catalyst for change so that people can create a life beyond their dreams. And that's what I want to share with you today because it's actually a lot easier than you think. And during this time when you can ultimately think to yourself, oh my gosh, this is such a hard time, you have an opportunity to take this time where we all got to slow down and make a decision on what you want your life to mean for the rest of time and how you want to be for the rest of time as well. So I'm going to share with you some of my little tricks that I've learned along the way to maybe help inspire you a bit to think differently about where you're going and where you ultimately want to be. So this is not your normal BNI presentation. This is more. This is more because I know all of you are very high achievers, or else you wouldn't be here. And I wanted to share with something with you so that you could be even more than you thought before. So first, I want to talk about the foundation. The foundation for every single one of us is really our beliefs and our core values, and what we ultimately decide our lives really mean. And I have been so lucky that BNI's core values and my core values aligned so well. So at the age of 24, I found this organization, became a member, and then became an executive director. I have no idea how I'm so unbelievably lucky because I got to find an organization where I could make a living, make a life, but also really have an impact and basically be able to align my whole life around one common way of being and one common way of knowing. And that has just been so unbelievably lucky. So I'm going to share with you the foundation and a way that you can look at really shoring up your foundation that you can then build anything upon. So the first one for me is lifelong learning. I think this was instilled in me at a very young age. I remember talking to my father, and he was sharing with me just recently. He said, Meaghan, he said, I will never forget you coming home in the first grade and with your report card, handing it to me, and it had all A's on it. And you said, how much money am I going to get? And he looked at me and said, what do you mean, how much money are you going to get? Everybody else in my class was getting money for every A that they made. So I came home asking how much money. And at the ripe age of in the first grade, my father looked at me and said, hey, honey, I don't care what grades you make. That is completely up to you. Do you want to be really good at what you do, or do you want to, or don't you? But your grades are your responsibility. I imagine my son just finished the first grade, and I think I do say things like that to him as well. But like from that moment, he started instilling me that like learning is up to you. And what's really amazing about this is I sit back and I think to myself, okay, what other degree do I need to have, or any of those things? And I said, I don't need any of that. And the reason why I don't need any of that is because I have a BNI MBA. I have learned everything that I have ever needed and everything that I have ever needed to know about business. I've never taken a business class in my life. So everything I've ever learned about business, I've learned from fellow BNI members. I've learned from the people around me. I've learned from reading books. And every single time I pick up a little something here and there and I add it to this big puzzle that has somehow become, what I now know, which is really interesting as you take those little pieces and you say, how does this really fit and how does this really serve me? So lifelong learning, even if it's not reading a book or taking a class or being on BNI University, even if it's just reflecting on what has happened today and what am I going to learn from it, and what has happened today and what I'm going to learn from it, just doing that is going to really make a huge impact for you, just that self-reflective piece. But lifelong learning is one of those things that I think is just it's key to life, because relationships, we are never going to know enough about relationships, and we're never going to know enough about leadership. It's a constant, consistent learning that we're going to always have to do. My other piece of my foundation is accountability. We have to take control of what we can take control of. In this time, especially, the minute that I started looking around outside of my home and realizing I have no control of anything, I don't even know what the future holds, that was the moment that I grabbed on and said, what do I have control over? What do I have control over, and how can I take accountability for what I have? And that is what has actually really helped me through this time. I hit my health goal that I set out to have because I had complete control over that during the time. And because I felt like I had complete control of one thing, I didn't feel out of control in any other way either. I could go with the flow with everything else. Accountability never really came easy to me. I am a high I, like a really high I. Habits are terrible. I never do the same thing at the same time at all. But having a group of people around me to really hold me accountable and help hold me up and lift me up to say, hey, we are really counting on you, is what has really helped me. So Greg has said all these amazing things about, BNI University and all of those things. I knew that the organization was relying on me, and I took that very, very seriously. And that is the reason what kept me going. Now, the one thing that I learned during this pandemic that I put down in my vision, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes, is that I also need to be really able to be held accountable by myself. I need to have personal goals that my husband doesn't care about, that my children don't care about, that nobody else cares about. But those personal things that I care about, I need to really continue to work on holding myself accountable to those things. And if I can crack that code, that will even take me one step further towards becoming the person that I ultimately want to be. The next one is know thyself. This might be traditions plus innovation in the BNI world, but I think it's really important to know my own operating system, to put it into computer terms. I know how I'm going to react to certain things. And because I know how I'm going to react to certain things, when I react, I can recognize it very, very quickly. So when I recognize it really quickly, then I know, okay, this is a very emotional response. What am I going to do with it, and how am I going to go forward? So really understanding myself and knowing that, and knowing how to then interact with the world is really key and really important as well. Now, with that, I realize it is Friday night for all of you, and this is probably the most intense presentation I could probably ever deliver over beers, which seems very, very strange. So that is why we're recording it, so that you can review it back again and say, wow, that was pretty intense, but I can review it. So we are recording this for that reason. But I know how I show up. I know how I show up to people, and thus I can then interact with the people around me as well. If you don't really understand yourself and what you ultimately want and where you're going, this is a perfect time to sit down and take some time to really figure that out. I think that is critically important. Now, I'll tell a story about my youngest sister. My sister is having a really hard time during this time. And part of the reason why that is because she has a really hard time being quiet and by herself. And if you have a hard time being quiet and by yourself, it's really an awesome time for you to sit back and try and figure out why that is. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. As I mentioned, I'm very social. I've thoroughly enjoyed this time because it has been a time where I've been able to really sit down and say, I'm okay. I really am okay. And I can keep moving forward because I know I'm okay in this particular situation as well. And right now, that is really important for all of us. We're all in this really weird space, and nothing is normal, and nothing will ever be normal again because this is our new normal. And really understanding how you're going to be as you move forward is going to be great way for you to feel very comfortable and confident moving into the future, whether it's about your business or just about who you're being. Next one is building relationships. Everything I have ever wanted, I have gotten through BNI. Okay, so I mentioned that I started with BNI at the age of 24. I have gone through many changes in my life during that time, but it's the relationships around me. It's caring for other people. It is us really taking care of ourselves and being a part of a community that means something more than referrals. That has been the thing that has been the most valuable to me ultimately. And that's building relationships with everyone, people who are really different than me, people who don't understand me. But that building of relationship is the piece that makes everything so rich. Now I know that there's a group of people around me that I can say, hey, I need this or I want that. And they really do want to help me get there. So I've never had someone look at me and say, no, I don't have time for you. But it's because I took the time to build the relationships. And around building relationships, the one thing that I think is critical is that we never know where our next greatest relationship is going to come from. And we sometimes we size people up and we think, oh, they're not this or they're not that, or even worse, we witness it all around us that there's judgment and all those things. We have no idea where our next best relationship is going to come from. We have no idea what each person has to offer. And I've got an interesting story about this to really reflect on it. When I was about 3 years into being an executive director, my region had 500 members in it, and I had my own house, and I was living in the house, and I decided that I wanted to start getting my house clean. So I called up a local. We didn't have one in BNI, believe it or not. So I called up a local maid service, and I was on the phone with the person, and I said, and she said, describe your house. And so I said, well, it's a 3-bedroom house. It's got, wood floors, and 2 of the bedrooms are offices, and then I have my bedroom. And I was explaining the entire thing. And she says, and what size is it? And I told her what size it was. And she says, well, honey, she says, we don't clean anything less than 2,500 square feet. My house was less than half the size of that, at less than 2,500 square feet. So when you make your $1 million, give us a call back. Yeah. When you make your $1 million, give us a call back. And I got off the phone stunned. And I literally said, she has no idea who I am. No clue that I have 500 people that I can email right this moment and slash this company to pieces. If I was going to do that, I literally said to myself, because I knew myself very well, you better stay away from your computer for the rest of the day. So I luckily did not actually act on that, but she decided she was going to be flippant enough to make a statement like that, having absolutely no idea who was on the other end of the line. And I see people do that a lot in life and around me, whether it's from road rage to just not being considerate. But you just never know where that next great relationship is actually going to come from. So building relationships obviously is something all of us know is really key and important, but it's also very important for reaching every goal that you could possibly have. The next one is life as a game. So this one in BNI, think of it as positive attitude. When you're playing a game, everything seems to be lighter and freer. When you're going through life, everything can seem to be really heavy and toxic. And so my son was recently having a meltdown. We were having a great conversation in one of the breakout sessions about children and education. And in my case, Keegan probably got a little bit behind in math because his dad and I, though we know math, didn't have the time to patiently teach it to him. So we were sitting down and he was having a complete meltdown and we were working on, and I said, honey, math is just a game. He said, no, math is not a game. Math is not a game. It's hard. No, math is just a game. You just have to figure out how the game works. And then once you know how the game works, then you can move forward. And it took him a couple of days of me saying, it's just a game. Think of it like a game. And when he could think of it like a game, it expanded his mind and it reduced his stress level to the point where he could think creatively and he could think faster. And that's what I try and do with myself on a regular basis is, you know what? Life is just a game. I'm dealing with this difficult person in front of me. It's just a game. Let me see if I can get that person right where I need them to be so that they can be in a spot where that's good for them and good for me. Let's figure out how we can really work this out. So I learned this one from my dad as well. My youngest sister, again, poor thing, she was the one who had to come along after the other two of us. I'm one of three girls, and I might have told Caitlin that middle school grades didn't matter, but grades don't matter until you get into high school because that's what colleges look at. So Kate decided that middle school grades didn't matter. It might have been slightly my fault. So instead of my dad looking at her and saying, get your grades up, get your grades up, get your grades up, what he did was he sat her down and said, Kate, you know your mother and I will love you just the same, and so will your sisters. But right now you've got Meaghan in college and Eleanor's in boarding school, and and Eleanor's on her way to being a doctor. And the thing that I'm just really concerned about is that I'm afraid that you're going to end up serving them drive-through from McDonald's, because that's the path you're on right now if you continue to go down this path. And literally took the air out of the room, but that was all she had to hear to immediately say, well, my sisters aren't going to one-up me, and move right along. Life is just a game. How are you going to get what you need positioned, how you need positioning it? Now, my dad used manipulation for good, but nonetheless, if you think of it as a game, it just lightens it up and makes it less intense, and it makes it less about you telling people what they need to do and more about how can I take these rules and work them in a way that will really make me successful and make everyone helpful and make people really want to ultimately reach their goals and their dreams as well. And so it's just a game. How can we all thrive together in this game that we have decided that we're all playing? Next one is obviously Heart of a Giver. I was reading a book, great book, Give or Take. I think it's Give and Take. Absolutely fabulous book. And I was reading it while I was going to visit chapters in Birmingham, Alabama, not to be confused with Birmingham in the UK, but in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was listening to this book. And at this point in the book, they said, givers are the lowest performers in an organization. And I had to turn off the car and get some gas. And so I literally am sitting there and I'm like, I'm a giver. In this book, we're talking about givers, takers, and matchers. Like, takers can't be the people who get the furthest. And matchers, like, what is it going to do? Teach me to be a matcher? Like, I'm a giver and I like being a giver, but I don't want to be the lowest performer in my organization. How does all of this going to work? It got so bad as I was pumping gas that I even texted a friend of mine to talk about how I did not have any clue how I was going to be not being a giver, because givers were the lowest performers. So I get back in the car and the audio picks up. And in the next paragraph, they talk about, and givers are the highest performers in their organizations as well. And it goes on to say, it takes the giver a lot longer to get there, but if they're patient, they will be the top performers in their organization. Takers get to the top really fast and fall from grace, but givers plug away and get there and plug away and get there. And I'm going to tell you, in my career and as I've gone forward, I have had more times where I am hugging that book, reminding myself that givers are the top performers. It just takes you a lot longer. Givers are the top performers. It just takes you a lot longer. Because sometimes it is so hard to see things going on around you and not want to engage in that. But staying in that space of being a giver and being in a positive space and knowing that you're doing the right thing on a consistent basis is something that sometimes will be really hard for you to get, but it's really important that you stay there. Being a giver is something that is so wonderful. And imagine if the whole world was that way. It's such a wonderful thing. And at the same time, it can be so challenging sometimes when it feels like it's being stepped on. And so just promise that you will try and stay in that space as consistently as possible. Because really, when you step out of the space of the giver and try and take action, it has always ended up backfiring on me in a big way. So having a heart of a giver obviously is a great foundational piece as well. And then last but not least, recognition. When I was 16, I had one of the most amazing life lessons that I wish I never had to have. I'd been at my regular high school up to my sophomore year, and I had dated this guy since middle school, and we were on and off and all that kind of stuff. First love, it was absolutely the first love. And I decided that I was going to go off to boarding school. And being such a mature 16-year-old, I said to him, I said, listen, I said, we're 16, like this whole like long distance thing is going to be really weird. It's probably not going to serve either of us very well. I think it's just better if we just kind of, part ways. And then if, whatever happens, happens. And that's pretty much how we left it. And I thought, that felt good to me. It felt really, really good to me to just be able to say, we're all free here and everything is fine. So fast forward to, I think it was September, and we have this thing called homecoming where we have an American football game, and then we all the alumni come back and all those things, and there are dances and the whole thing. And he had called me just before homecoming from my old high school, and I didn't return his phone call. And what I learned later was he was calling to see if I wanted to go to homecoming with me, which I completely missed that opportunity, which I'm kind of kicking myself for now, but missed that opportunity. So fast forward again, he and I saw each other. It was great seeing him. It was very much like old times. He was doing very, very well. Going forward, it was October 30th, and I was back at boarding school, and my sister Eleanor called, and she said, call me back. Well, Eleanor and I never really talk on the phone. It's just kind of not what we do. And so it was very strange. I call her back, and she could only get out the words, Bucky's dead. And I said, and I literally remember to like this moment, I can picture, I was stunned. And I said, is this a joke? Is this Halloween? Is this a trick? And she said, no, it's not a trick. I was just, like I said, stunned. I was absolutely stunned. It turns out Bucky, who had been the person who had been the most positive person in my world to help me understand who I was and how appreciated I was, he helped me realize that I have self-worth and self-esteem. And I now find out that he's completely gone. And worse than that, he had done it himself. He had committed suicide. I knew him to be the happiest, most amazing, smiling person. And what I did not know about him is clearly that is not all he was. He showed all of us that, but he didn't show us who he really was. So what I learned from that I have taken with me to this day is recognizing everything about everyone. You have no idea what people are going through, and especially right now. The fact that we're all going through this time, it is a perfect time to create even more depression than there was before in the world. It's a perfect time for us to get down just because things are not going as beautifully as they were back in January and February. But recognizing people for who they are and recognizing them and telling them that you appreciate them is the lesson that I really learned. I now never go without telling people how much I appreciate them. I also never go without letting people know that I love them as well. And it's that recognition that now allows me to sleep perfectly at night because I know that everybody knows exactly where they stand with me. And that is really critical and important for me to know that if someone now leaves my life, they know exactly where they stood with me all the time. And so I try to be the sunshine in people's world and the shining light for them whenever they see me. And I found that it's brought huge amounts of value to my life as I've gone forward. So all of those align beautifully with B&I, which I absolutely love. And those are my foundation. That's the foundation that I have built all of my success on, is really being me, making sure I'm completely aligned and always trying to align my heart with my head and making sure that everything is very, very aligned. That gives me a good foundation to then go through a very simple process to basically achieve every goal that I've ever wanted, okay? So this is where we're going to get a lot lighter because I know that was all pretty heavy. All right, so the first thing is getting clear about what you want. So I got exposed in 2014 to an amazing visioning process. basically what we did was we went through and we answered a series of questions and went through what's working in my life, what's not working in my life, what do I want more of, what do I want less of, and really just getting really, really clear on what are the things that I really, really want. And then I had the opportunity to dream, just free write. If I could have anything I wanted, however I wanted, what would my life look like in 5 to 10 years? And then I started writing. I went through this process with a woman named Lois Weinblatt with True North Consulting, and she helped me really solidify my vision. So now I have an 8-page document that tells you exactly what my life is going to look like in 2024. So I can now see exactly what life is going to look like. And every single time I read it, I get so excited about the life that I'm going to have. And that vision has created a pull for me to help me get there, which has been amazing. So what happened after I created the vision? So we got it all finished, we got it all written, and then I stood up and I read it out loud. And the craziest thing happened. Things started coming to me. So one of the things that was in my vision that I had put down, which I laughed about at the time when I was reading it, was that I had a stereo receiver that would fit in my entertainment center. And I looked at Lois and I said, what are you doing? Why did that end up in there? And she said, the day we did this exercise, it was very important to you. And I said, okay, fair enough. So I said, okay, fair enough. So little thing that you need to know about my husband. Sean must research everything. He is an engineer, the purest of kinds. He has to research everything. So when we buy an electronic device in our household, it takes approximately 90 days to 6 months before it can be chosen and identified. I, on the other hand, could care less. I just want it to fit in the entertainment center. That was all that I was really worried about. So the Saturday after I had completed my vision, I go to Costco, which is a big store. I go to Costco and we walk in and we stop with the cart and Sean looks at me and said, hey, there's a stereo receiver. And I said, uh-huh. He said, what size stereo receiver do we need to fit in that piece of furniture? And I knew it off the top of my head because it was very important and I'd written it down as one of my goals. And he looked at me and he goes, here's one that fits. And I said, uh-huh. And he said, do you think we should buy it? And I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, do you think we should buy it? And I said, yeah. So he picks it up and he puts it into the cart. And I literally stood there and I was like, is this a joke? This has to be a joke. Like this is not how he purchases anything, especially electronic. Is this a joke? And we checked out with the receiver that fit into the cabinet. I called up Lois the next day and I said, oh my gosh, this visioning stuff works. You will not believe what just happened to me. Sean bought a piece of equipment without researching anything. I said, this completely works. The other things that were on that vision was BNI University and BNI Engage, which are 2 products that we now have in BNI. And what was great about that part of it was I wanted to create those things for Northern Alabama. Well, after, I think it took me 2.5 years, but 2.5 years after I had written that vision, I had the opportunity to do it for the world instead of just Alabama. So BNI University was written down before I knew who Graham Weinmiller was, our CEO, before I had any clue that I would even be on the global support team. So getting clear about what you want will ultimately pull you towards exactly what that is. The next thing that is really key is extreme transparency. I share my vision with anyone who is willing to read it. I am more than happy to share what my master bathroom is going to look like. I am more than happy to share everything about what I want, what I am becoming with anyone who will listen. I also am very comfortable with people actually knowing very much who I am. It again helps relieve any tension around me trying to figure out who does this person want me to be. But having extreme transparency allows you to really just live life completely and live life completely. The extreme transparency also gets you to the point where people will start wanting to help you create that vision that you have and will do anything they can to help you with that, as long as you've solidified it and allowed them to be able to really read it and understand it. And then focus. Focus is key. I lose focus multiple times a day. I'm pretty sure I'm ADD. I just have not been diagnosed. But what you focus on gets done. what you focus on gets accomplished, whether it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. The focus and knowing exactly what your plan is going to be will help you get there. So I've identified where I'm going. I've shared it with anybody who can. And now I'm going to really start to focus in on what is my game plan. My game plan starts with a rolling annual plan. So I go through a process called the Full Focus Planner, where first I take my vision, I identify what are the things that I want to do this year within that vision. I call it my rolling annual plan because every single time I complete one of those 10 things, it comes off the list and another one comes on the list. So I do this rolling annual plan every single quarter. That rolling annual plan, again, just is taken directly from my vision of exactly what I'm trying to accomplish. And I say, okay, this is what I'm going to do this time around, and let's see what happens. So the beginning of this, in March, when I was doing my next quarterly plan, when I sat back and I looked at my vision and I said, I've been working on this health goal or talking about this health goal for about 5 years. We're stuck at home. We have to eat at home. Thus, this is the best time for me to actually accomplish it. And that automatically went onto my annual plan as the next thing came off. From there, once I've got what I want to accomplish for the year, I then do quarterly planning. What am I going to do for the next 90 days? A great book to help you with this, if you're thinking about how do I structure this, is called The 12-Week Year. And the 12-week year talks about how you can get more accomplished in a quarter than most people get accomplished in a year because you're focused on it. You're focused on it, you're moving forward with it, and every single day you're going to work towards it. I love my quarterly planning time. This is my planner. This is my quarter. I love it because I get to write down, yes, writing with a pen. I get to write down what is my goal, what are my motivators, what are my next steps, and what is my reward going to be when I actually get there. This helps me then be able to review it every day, every week, to make sure that I'm moving towards that as I really help myself hone in and focus. So I create, what's that plan? I reverse engineer. What are all the steps I need to take to be able to get to that quarterly goal done that will ultimately get me to that annual goal? From there, then it's weekly planning. Do you see a trend here? Then it's weekly planning. What am I going to get done this week? This is a perfect week for me to be sharing this with you because number one, I did it properly this week, which was fabulous. I only can accomplish this about 30% of the time, and 30% of the time has helped me accomplish what I've been able to accomplish. So if somebody can pull off 50 or 70%, you're going to be able to do whatever you want in life, guaranteed. But this week was really interesting. I was asked, what are my top 3 things I want to accomplish this week? By Wednesday, I had forgotten what those 3 things were, but luckily I'd written them down. So I went back and I wrote them down and I reviewed them after I'd written them down. And then I thought about, okay, now how am I going to plan daily to get these 3 things done this week? If you only get 3 things done a week intentionally, and all the other time you spend is with whatever's coming and flying at you, you can take massive steps towards your goals every single day and every single week. So I do daily planning. I sit down, I say, am I doing my top 3 things that are going to get me to my weekly goal? If I'm getting my weekly goal then I'm getting towards my quarterly goal. And if I'm getting my quarterly goal done, then I'm doing it towards my annual goal. And in all, that is the complete process that I go through on a continuous basis. Did I mention that I am a very high I and I actually really hate being habitual. I have a very hard time being habitual. I have worked so hard to be able to do this process over and over again because I know it is the thing that will make the difference in every goal that I want to achieve. So as painful as it is for me, for my natural disposition to doing this, this is the thing that helps me stay on target and make sure that I'm moving towards things that I actually want to make my life more full and more fuller and better, and also a better service to others as well. So I do my daily planning. And this all is topped off with my Miracle Morning. So I want to share this very tactical thing with you. This is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. It's a book. You can Google it and get everything you need on this particular topic. This has been my savior through this pandemic time because it solidly focuses me and calms me down every single day so that then I can move forward. If I did not get calmed down every single day during this time, I have no idea where I would be right now because this has been absolutely my saving grace. So the miracle morning is savers. S, silence. I am horrible at meditating, like the worst. I can only do it for about 5 minutes at a time, but I'm going to tell you, it makes the biggest difference in my day just to have centered myself and sat in silence and really just calmed my shoulders and relaxed all my muscles in my body. So S stands for silence. You can do this for 1 minute and it works. So there's really no excuses. Next one is affirmations. I recently had an assessment done on myself when I took this new role, and just to see kind of where are going to be the gaps and the challenges that I'm going to have in the role that I've just taken on. And the gentleman who was helping me, the consultant who was helping me, calls me up and he says, I think you took the test wrong. And I said, okay. I said, why is that? He said, did you take it when you were really emotional? I said, no. I said, I read the instructions and it said, make sure that you're very even keel. I said, no, no, I wasn't really emotional. He said, did you take it like really late or really early in the morning? And I said, no, I took it in the middle of the day on a Saturday. It was pretty well balanced. And I said, why do you keep asking me these questions? He said, it's telling me that you're not, it's telling me, and I was like, what is it telling you? He said, it's telling me that you are really not very self-assured and you might have low self-esteem. And I said, that sounds about right. And he says, what? I said, yeah, that sounds about right. I do a lot of work to assure myself that I'm doing the right thing at the right time. And I said, yeah, so that sounds about right. So I don't think your test is broken. And I said, I just don't think you really knew that about me. And he said, no, I did not know about you, that you cover it up very well. And I said, nope, every day behind closed doors, I am reaffirming that what I'm doing and what I'm trying to accomplish is the right thing, because it does very much concern me on a day-to-day basis. So affirmations can help tremendously. Another hilarious affirmation that I used to have when I was 24 and newly a B&I executive director, trying to tell a whole bunch of people that were way older than me how to do their business when it comes to B&I. I had this major gap of like, what do I know? None of these people, like all of these people know more than me. And I used to reaffirm, I'm 32 years old. I'm 32 years old. I'm 32 years old, just to show up as a 32-year-old. I don't know why 32 was so much better than 24 at the time, but 32 was it. And somebody asked me my age, and no kidding, 32 came flying out of my mouth before I could catch it. And I had affirmed it, and I was living it. So affirmations really help if there's any area that you feel like you're in doubt about. Visualization. What is my day going to look like, and how is it going to be the best day I can make it? What is it going to look like when I actually reach that goal that I'm really trying to accomplish? What is it going to feel like when I'm, in one of my cases, what is it going to feel like the next time I'm standing on the stage at Global Convention? And that's the picture that I have as I visualize. The next one is exercise. Even if it's walking, even if it's just anything, getting your body moving and getting your body loosened up every single day. This has been the single biggest savior for me during this time. It has helped me keep a clear mind, and it's helped me really feel more confident than I would have going through this particular time in the new role that I'm in. The next one is reading. I've gone so far, so this one's a really hard one for me. One, I like listening to audio, and I used to listen to an audiobook when I would go to the gym, and instead now I'm working out at home, obviously. And so I was like, when am I going to get my book audio time in? And I said to myself, okay, I've got to figure out how to do it. I then went and got myself, waterproof waterproof headphones, so that I could work out, shower, and be able to listen to my book the entire time. So I literally just tried to figure out where can I find an extra 10 minutes to get my book time in, and went so far as to just ask myself the question over and over again so that I would be able to accomplish it. So now I've got these headphones that I can use. I can go swimming, the whole thing, and the whole purpose of that is so I can get my reading time in. And then last but not least, writing. This one is I'm the worst at, like really bad, almost never get it done. But writing, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? How did my day go? This one is really key as well. You can do all of these in 6 minutes, 1 minute at a time. And it literally, the days I do this are the days that I have the best days. And the days that I don't do this, it's always going to be hit and miss. But this has been a life changer. And they have a whole book on people telling their stories about how this has completely changed the course of their lives just by doing this particular thing. So to wrap it up, the rewards. This is also one that I'm terrible at, but we all have to celebrate. We have to celebrate when we accomplish something great. Even when we accomplish something we've been really working hard to, just celebrate it for ourselves. I now keep an Amazon wish list of my rewards because I'm so terrible at it, but it's also so much fun to get the rewards that I put in place and identified. It's so rewarding to get that because you know that that thing stands for something, or that dinner stands for something. And it is a really positive way to help wrap up what your accomplishments are in a perfect little bow. So in closing, I know this is really intense. This is what I do on a consistent basis. It's super simple. It's super easy. It will help you get just inch that little bit more out of yourself to take it to just a little bit of the next level. But the big one that I have had to learn, especially during this time, is that you have to cut yourself some slack. However you're feeling is okay. However you are being is okay. If you're a little snippier than usual, it's okay. We all have to cut ourselves some slack right this moment, because when we cut ourselves some slack, we can then take a step back and we can ultimately decide what is our story going to be? What's our COVID story going to be? What is the story of this year going to be? It's not what we thought it was going to be in January, but you can decide it's going to be something, and whatever that decision is, it will be just that. So with that, I hope that you got a few little tidbits on how you could really take a few of these things that I talked about and really work on making this time your most productive and cultivating time that you've ever seen before. And imagine that as your COVID story. It would be amazing, and it'll be a story that you'll want to tell for years and years to come. With that, back to you, Greg.
Meaghan, the first question, and it's a two-parter. You ready?
Yeah.
So part one is, what do you do on those days or weeks when the universe just says no? You're having a bad day, the coffee machine jams, all that kind of stuff. That's part one. However, part two is the most important. When are you moving to our region, because we love you? Comment that in the chat.
Yeah, so part one, so this is interesting. This is the technique I've used my whole life. So I used to go to my mom. This is how intense of a kid I was. I used to go to my mom and look at her and say, Mom, I need a mental health day, and I can't go to school today. And she literally would look at me and say, okay, you can stay home. And literally like that. And it's very funny because just recently, within the last couple of weeks, I had one of those moments at work, and I called Matt Murphy, our COO, and I said, Matt, I think I need a mental health day. And he said, okay. So I just, when it's a day that there is just nothing, obviously I try and push through most of the time, but if I just am in a moment, when I'm in a place where there's no way I can push through, I give myself the grace, and everyone else around me, again, because of extreme transparency, knows me well enough to give me grace as well. And so when I say I'm done, most of the time people say, okay, go ahead, and we'll see you on Monday. So that's it. I think it's just being honest with yourself, and don't get yourself too frustrated. There's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow to pick it back up and see if it's going to be easier then.
Absolutely brilliant. And when are you moving to our region?
And when am I moving? Okay, this is a completely inappropriate response to the question, but it depends on the next election.
What, yours or ours?
Can't say the same thing. Follow up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll just say, what election? Because you're not going to have one.
Yeah.
I know, right? No, I got a phone call from my parents. My dad is a former O'Connor. My grandmother was an O'Connor, and so my dad said, I can get dual citizenship in Ireland. I was like, okay. And my mom looks at me and says, but the deal is if we get citizenship, then all of you have to move with us. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? And they literally said, depending on the next election, we might be moving to Ireland. And I was like, what about Eleanor? And what about, but the whole family has to move. They can't stay away from the grandkids. So.
Well, I've just seen Daff do an Irish jig there.
Yeah.
Daff is very, very happy about it. Okay, so I've had two more questions come in, but all around the same subject. One from Alan and one from Jenny. Please keep your questions coming for Meaghan. So Alan has said you mentioned a couple of books to read, but have you written one yourself, or are you planning to? And Jenny, same question: have you written a book? And if you haven't, please will you? So
wow.
That's at least.
So here's my challenge. My challenge with writing a book is literally nothing that I've done has ever been an original thought. It's all just been how I piece everything together and put it all together. I don't know. Like, I don't feel worthy to be an author.
Oh, come on. No.
I know. I just am like, I just never, I have to tell you, you guys have no idea how humbling it is for Greg to have said, you came, everybody was requesting that you come, and how humbling it is when I'm asked to do this in general, but especially when people say, when just people say how much, it's just so humbling. Because I just feel like little old me trying to pedal along as quickly as I can. So thank you all. This has been just such a wonderful experience.
But you do realize that there's not an original idea. It's always a mishmash of other people's ideas. So maybe your mishmash is needed.
Yeah, yes, that's probably true. I think I've got a very, I've already,
So we're waiting for the Kindle, at least the Kindle version.
Hey, I'll journal about that. That's the biggest commitment I can make at the moment.
Okay.
I'll journal about it for sure.
Okay, so just as a show of wavy hands like that, who would buy and read Meaghan's book?
Thank you.
Will it be an audio?
Full transparency. The whole entire time I'm doing this presentation, I'm literally like, I have no idea if any of this is landing with anyone. Like, but keep going, Meaghan. Keep going. Like, you have it planned. Just keep going with the plan. So anyway, yeah.
Totally.
So
I think you've landed.
We haven't been asked any other questions. Well, there's one about shoe shopping, which is quite close to my heart. So people want to know, they've noticed your fabulous shoes on stage, want to know when you fit your shoe shopping time in.
I was going to say, which shoes are you talking about? I shop online, and I pray that they fit when they show up. That's pretty much the extent of it.
So we're also being told on the chat that that people have pages and pages of notes. Anne-Marie can confirm that Meaghan has landed.
No,
the Chitwood has landed. That needs to be the name of the book, I think.
Yeah.
Be fantastic. All right, so I'm going to ask a question and then we'll draw the Q&A to a close unless there are any more brilliant ones that come through. So you are the person with a finger on the pulse of BNI. You know where BNI's been, where it currently is, and where it's going. What's the most exciting thing that you're not allowed to tell us, but you're definitely going to tell us that's coming in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, so, I mean, I think this one's pretty obvious, but I think we have opened the Pandora's box of doing BNI online forever. So BNI online is here to stay. There's no doubt about it. I just know that there's going to be a chapter in the world that says, we're not going back to in-person and you can't make us. So that's definitely coming. And then, right now is just a really interesting time because BNI is reinventing. I mean, we're kind of reinventing ourselves on the fly. And it was really interesting because we had Dr. Meisner come and speak to the national directors on Wednesday. And, you never know how the founder is going to feel about all the changes that have happened. But he said, he was the one that said, BNI Online is here to stay. Like, oh, good, we have his blessing. That's great news. So I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see more offerings of, what is membership and what does that ultimately look like. And so, yeah, that's, unfortunately, there's not anything really sexy right now because we're all like still trying to figure out which end is up as a whole. So yeah.
Well, people really don't want you to stop because
No.
more
No.
questions are coming through. So we've got someone saying they find it really hard to decide on their absolute goal. And do your goals change?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Goals. I mean, yes, goals change. Goals definitely change. I think my overall vision doesn't change, hasn't really changed a whole lot from there. So one of the things that I didn't say, when I said, BNI University was in my original vision in 2014 before Graham Weimmiller even became the CEO. And one of the stories I didn't share was, and this might be going to one of my favorite development stories for me, which is another question there, is so I was the U.S. process alignment manager. So I was creating processes for BNI and helping the U.S. Really focused on the U.S. And I got it was 5 a.m. and I was on my way to the gym. And I got a ping on my phone, and it was Graham Weimmiller, the CEO, asking me a bunch of really random and vague questions. And I had seen this before, and I had experienced it before as well, of like, he's got an idea, I can't figure out what the idea is, this is going to be really weird. So I pull over and I text and I email him back the answers to his questions, and then he fires off back more questions before I could even pull out. And I immediately called my trainer and was like, I've been derailed, I won't be making it to the gym today. And I came back home. And finally, I just done a bunch of work with StrengthsFinder. So I knew what my strengths were. That's another thing I highly recommend. Understand what your strengths are so you just know it and you can name them. And so I knew that ideology was one of my strengths. Bouncing ideas is one of my top. And so I finally said, my response to more questions was, Graham, I don't know what you're up to. However, I am really good at bouncing ideas. So if you want to give me a call, I think I might be able to help you figure out what you're trying to figure out. And literally he calls. So 5:15 in the morning, I'm sitting on my porch because you can hear my voice reverberate through our house. I'm sitting on our porch and I'm on the phone, and he goes into this whole, we're looking for a director of global operations, and we put an offer out to this person. And then when they started to do the background, the negotiations started getting weird. And I was like, okay. I was like, what are you looking for in a director of operations? And he was telling me, and I said, okay, and we could do this, we could do that, and all this. And I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, so what kind of person are you looking for? And I'm thinking, who could I refer? And he comes back to me and he says, so actually what I was thinking is that you could do it. And my response was, what? Like, what? He was like, yeah, I was thinking that maybe it would be an opportunity for you. And for the first time in my life, I literally was like, brain scrambled. I can't make a decision. Like, I don't even know what this means. Like, I'm like, what? So I literally said to him, I was like, well, I'm going to have to think about it. I went and was rocking the bed, hoping my husband would wake up so I could talk to him about it. And I sat down and I remembered, wait a second, is this the vision? Does this take me a step closer to the vision that I have for myself? And I went down and I read through what my vision of what life looks like. Now the details always change because those are the little goals of how I'm going to get there. But I literally went down, and if you marked out BNI Alabama and you wrote in BNI Global, it all still made sense. It was just on a higher level that I never expected. So, I mean, your goals do change, but I think your overall vision of what you want, unless you have a massive life change that just is like, no, like I'm going in a completely different direction, as a whole, unless there's a major life change, my vision ultimately hasn't changed that much of what I ultimately want life to look like, because it's more about how I want life to feel than it is about where I live or what I drive or any of those kinds of things. So very long answer, but yes, goals change, but I think your overall vision probably will stay. Mine has stayed very, very much the same. The scope has just gotten bigger, but not the direction of the things that I was interested in.
So as is always the case, we've now been inundated with questions. We're going to run out of time. So Meaghan, can people on the call connect with you on social media? Yeah,
absolutely. So I've been terrible about it, but yes, I'm on Facebook. I'm not very good with Instagram. One of my things I probably need to think about, but also And even, yes, so connect with me there. And then if you want to connect in another way, you can just email me and we can get connected.
Brilliant. One person has asked, when are you next speaking? I know Meaghan has got some amazing content on BNIU. She's a prolific content creator for BNIU, and it's all to the caliber that you've seen this evening. So jump on BNIU if you want some of your Meaghan fix. You can jump on there 24 hours a day. The last one, which has been asked by a number of people now, and it just shows how beautiful our members are here, is what can we do to help you?
Oh, I'm horrible about this question. I need to be prepared more often. I think really honest feedback. I mean, really honest feedback. Anytime you are asked about feedback about BNI, really honest feedback is going to be the thing that helps us most. It's actually one of the things that I tend to get a little bit frustrated about. Positive attitude is one of our core values, yet confronting the brutal facts also needs to be one of our core values, because it's the only thing that's going to help us get better. So if there are things that you feel like are working really well and you want more of, if there are things about BNI that drive you nuts, I am safe. I am a safe place to send them over to, because I feel like we don't get enough of the whole, like, this makes me crazy about BNI. And that's the kind of stuff that really helps me, because then having a pulse on the members is probably one of the things that I feel like we could always do better at. So yeah, fantastic. Brutal honesty is how you can help me the most.
Yeah, you are speaking to a room full of South Londoners. I'm not sure you realise.
Yeah, are you guys worse than New Yorkers?
Yeah, no, they're worse than New Yorkers. Definitely so.
No, it's helpful. All of it is helpful. It really is.
Can we just show our appreciation for just a stunning session?
Thank you.
So,